everybody. This is Chris Schmidt from Rocket Lasso, and welcome back to the RKT Field Driver Bundle Training Series. In this video, we are going to be talking about another field. It will be the Field Driver Link. In order to use the Field Driver Link, we're going to have to use Field Driver to animate something first. So in this case, we are using the scene file that I actually used to make the logo animation for the tool. I just simplified it a little bit. Instead of going off in a million clones in every direction, I just kind of limited it to this. So to start with, we need something to animate, and I think we'll start with the actual Field Driver logo. So I'll grab this gear link right there. And what do I want to drive? I think I want to drive the rotation H. So I grab that and spin it, and yes, that is the one I want. So right-clicking on that, we will add a new Field Driver Tag, and that's automatically going to have this timer on it. I'll just yank that out so we can see it more easily. And what do we want to rotate? I want to rotate on H. So I'll drag that in because I don't want all three in this case. Now, we're just going to do tiny little motions from here. So I'm going to rotate it 60 degrees, which is 1/6 of 360. Now, how long do we want that to take? If we select our rocket timer, we can set the exact time. And honestly, I think 30 might work out pretty well. So I'll go down to my presets here and have this ease in. And if we hit play, let's see how our rotation looks. Okay, we get that nice pop, like it kind of snaps into position. I'll say cumulative, so it's constantly rotating further and further. It's adding together. And I like that. I might just want a little bit more of a pause there. So it's going to stop a little bit. So you can see how we can just remap this. I don't even need the point to go all the way to the end. It's just going to snap there and then eventually continue from that same location, rotating more and more. So having done that, that's actually a very simple setup. Here is our Field Driver Tag, and I want that to drive a whole bunch of other things. So in this case, let's say I want to drive the letter K. So you can see that this one's already offset a little bit. So why don't we zero out its rotation? So it looks like that. Now, from there, let's right-click and add another Field Driver Tag. So I'll just make one from scratch, Field Driver. I don't need the timer this time. And again, I think I want to be rotating on H. So I'll drag that over. And you can see it's sitting there, not doing anything, and there's no value in there. Now, we already know that the rotation of 60 seemed to work pretty well, but it's just going to sit there. So I want to link this somehow directly to our other Field Driver Tag. No matter what it's doing, I want it to do the same thing. Now, there's a reason why I'm not just going to link in that same timer. So And there's other things we can layer, but this is all about being able to drive it from another Field Driver Tag. So here's what we do. We click on our fields, and I'm going to grab a Rocket Field Driver Link, and that's going to make a very, very simple field here. Click on the main tab, and you see this is all that it is. Essentially, it's just a remapping of a field driver. So all we have to do is link a field driver, and we're going to see that we are now getting rotation, and it's rotating the opposite direction from what I want it to be. So I'm going to go inside of its tag and say, I want this to rotate to -60. And now you can see it's rotating correctly, but it is offset a little bit from where I want it to be. So what I will do is, in this case, maybe just make a solid, and that solid, I'm going to say add to it. And how much do I want to add? Well, that's -60, and I want it to be half of a loop over. So I'm going to say add, and I'll just start dropping this value down. And I think exactly a 50% is going to be half of a loop. So now you can see that that is now perfectly offset by 1/2 of a loop. And we are now directly linked to another tag. No matter what this tag does, whatever this is outputting, that's 0 to 100%. Selecting my original tag, we can see, if I rewind, that it's going to be traveling up and then going further and further and further. And that is what we're feeding it. No matter what we change, whatever this kind of output is, that's 0 to 100%, that is what is driving into our second tag. So now we've got this rotation working exactly the way I want it to. So I think that this tag is actually pretty much all we need. So I'm going to yank that out and just have it hang out kind of more globally. And now I've got this letter T. I want it to do a very similar thing. So I will duplicate this tag onto that T, and you're going to see that is now rotating. That one I want to do the opposite again. So I'm going to say, hey, just set that to +60. So now that's going to be spinning the other way, and I've still got that solid. I'll just turn it off so we get that half a rotation offset on there. Excellent. So that is now spinning correctly. Let's copy this again onto our letter R, and that's actually up a little bit higher. So let me just move this up here so the order of operations is correct, and I'll steal that animation from the T because that's exactly what I want to be on the letter R. So now the letter R is rotating exactly the way I want it to. So yeah, those are all looking great. And the reason for doing it this way is if I go back into the original one, that's the one that's driving all of them, and I can always select a tag and actually go to the link itself and say just select element, and now I know it's being driven from that one. With that selected, I can go and make a modification to this, like say I want this to have a delay and make that a springy motion and go pretty short on there. And now you can see that the original one is going to have this spring, this wiggly spring animation, and all the rest of them are getting the exact same thing. So it automatically propagates through the system. Now I could click on any one of these tags and we could go into our field driver link, and actually it's right here, and I could modify this, change it to any other arc, but I want them to be identical. I don't want to remap that information. So right now I'm just cleanly linking them, and any change I make to the original is going to propagate through all the other tags. Now we can push that even a little bit further by, let's go down to our cloners. So these cloners are also going to want to be linked in the exact same way. So I've got two different cloners. One set is, you'll actually notice that I've got a gear with no hole and this blank null to make them alternate. And I got two cloners that do each of them because they need to rotate opposite directions. So with this cloner, I will add in just a plane field. So I'll hold down control, make a plane, and there's the plane working for us. And I want to add in that same field driver link. So I can drop that in. And right now it's traveling upward. I don't want that. So inside of the plane, I will say, don't change position. Yes, change rotation. I want it to be rotating -60 or possibly +60. And let's make sure it's not clamped. So now you can see that those are all rotating. Now, actually, this is the opposite one that I want to start out with. So why don't we transfer that over to this cloner? And I'll say drive this gear with that. So now those are rotating. So I can see that those are opposite of what I want. So I'll say, okay, -60, just do the opposite because every other one alternates. And now I'll copy this plane effector up, and I'll say that this one shouldn't be viewing that original plane. It'll be viewing this new copy, and that one will be positive. So just by inverting those values, I can get these to rotate opposite directions. And now a single field driver is driving these fields, and it's driving these field driver tags. So a very, hopefully, simple tool that you can use to link between different objects and just get nice, clean control over them. Now, we actually went even a step further here. And actually, when I went to go render this, there was issues that we found out that come in fields in general, not our fields specifically, but something like delay wasn't rendering properly in Redshift because of the motion blur I was adding in. So I had to bake it down. So we even added in some nice clean features where I can go and bake down this particular tag. So I can just say bake current. So the only thing I'm baking is this link. So I'll say bake that one. And that's going to travel all the way through. And this is keyframing all of the rotation on the entire object. So if I click on that and go to coordinates, you can now see that that is keyframed on every single frame. But also, if I click on the tag, you see everything is grayed out. But if I scroll down here, you're going to see that we have an output value and output color. And these are still live. This is what is actually sort of being output. And the field driver links are smart enough to know that the thing that they're referencing to look at this value. So it's looking at the keyframed version of that value. So that means just by baking that one thing, all of these are prepared for sending off to render because the motion blur is all going to look correct because it's actually updating on the correct value here. So yeah, very straightforward field. Like I said, very simple setting. We've only got a couple other settings in there. Like it is set to be uniform. If we had 3 vectors, it could be setting them to be uniform. And we can also, if the value is going above 100, we can say, hey, if you hit 100, loop back around again if you don't want to be directly being driven. So yeah, that should actually wrap up the field driver link. This one was nice and short. So I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye, everybody.